Hi, I'm Neal Fugate. Welcome to part 2 of the video series, Understanding the California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement. Oh, and as a reminder, I'm leaving a link below so that you can download a sample copy of the RPA whenever you want, so you can go over it on your own time. And in part 1, we went over Form AD, which is the agency disclosure. In this video, we're going to cover forms PRBS and the WFA. As you probably remember, the RPA is accompanied by a number of other forms that are also part of the transaction. Here's the list of all the forms, and the PRBS is the possible representations of more than one buyer or seller, and the WFA is the wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. Form PRBS informs buyers and sellers that real estate brokers and their agents may represent more than one buyer or seller concurrently. And what that means is a broker or their agent may be representing prospective buyers that have an interest in or want to make offers on the same properties. And the broker is not going to limit their buyer clients to making offers on any properties. So if I'm an agent representing a number of buyers that really like one house, then I'm not going to tell them, oh, I have another buyer who's also interested in that, so you can't make an offer on it. No, that's not the way it works. Even if I have 15 different buyer clients and they all want to make an offer on the same property, then it's my duty to represent each of them and convey their offer to the best of my ability to the seller. Regarding multiple sellers, it's kind of the same situation. A broker or their agent may represent a lot of different sellers who are selling the property at the same time, and they could be in the same neighborhood. So if I'm representing a seller, it's my duty to find a buyer for that property. And if I'm representing multiple sellers in the same area, it's my duty to find multiple buyers for those multiple properties. I'm not going to favor one seller or the other. It's my duty to market all listed properties to all prospective buyers, whether or not I have other listed properties that may appeal to the same prospective buyers or not. And regarding dual agency, if a seller is represented by the broker and the seller acknowledges that the broker may represent the buyer of the seller's property, then they consent to the broker acting as a dual agent for both the seller and the buyer in the transaction. Likewise, if the buyer is represented by the broker, the buyer acknowledges that the broker may represent the sellers of the property also in the transaction. In addition, in the event of dual agency, the seller and the buyer agree that a dual agent may not, unless they give them permission, disclose to the other party confidential information, specifically that could weaken the other party's position. For example, if a seller reveals to the agent that they may be willing to take a lesser price for the property, the agent can't share that with the buyer. If the buyer shares with the agent that they may be willing to pay more for the property, the agent can't share that with the seller. The buyer and seller are represented by the same agent. The agent has a fiduciary responsibility to both sides of the transaction. And in addition, if the agent is aware of some material fact that could affect the desirability or the marketability of the property, he or she has a duty to disclose that to the buyer and the seller as well. And if you'd like more details about dual agency, then check out the Dual Agency Disclosure Guide below, and this is the link for it as well. Confidentiality. In regards to confidentiality, buyers should be aware that a seller or their agent may disclose the existence, terms, or conditions of a buyer's offer unless all parties involved have signed a written confidentiality agreement. And that's not the normal case these days. So that means that depending on the situation, if a buyer has made an offer on a property, the seller's agent may share details about that offer with other prospective buyers. If it happens or not depends on the situation and the selling agent or the seller's strategies. But when it may come into play would be if I'm representing the seller and we've already received multiple offers above or at listing price, and a buyer's agent calls me to see if we received any offers, then yeah, I'm going to tell them we have multiple offers at or above listing price. That's going to tell the buyer's agent to let the buyer know that if they want to have their offer really seriously looked at, it probably needs to be at least at listing price, if not over. That's why it's done normally. And it reiterates in the final paragraph that the buyer and seller understand that the broker may represent more than one buyer or more than one seller, and even both the buyer and seller on the same transaction, and consents to such relationships. Now we'll move on to the WFA. The WFA is the Wire Fraud and Electronic Funds Transfers Advisory, and it informs buyers and sellers that wire fraud is really a serious concern, and it outlines some of the best practices to protect against falling victim to it. If you would like to see the specifics of the WFA, then I encourage you to download the RPA packet below and look over it in detail. I don't want to read it back to you word for word in this video. But some of the highlights: the ability to communicate and conduct business electronically is a convenience and a reality in nearly all parts of our lives. But at the same time, it's opened the door to scammers and hackers and given new opportunities for criminal activity. While it is a convenience, you need to use extreme caution. I mean, there are real-world situations where people have literally lost their entire deposit. Their escrow, the money that was supposed to go into escrow, has made its way into an offshore bank account, and there's really little that can be done in those situations. And I actually give you each bullet point here, but like I said, I'm not going to read these to you word for word. One of the key takeaways from the WFA is that it suggests that if you want to avoid wire fraud completely, then you can rely on an alternative method like using a cashier's check. They still work. But the main thing is when you're dealing with wiring money, you want to probably double and triple check that the accounts that you're going to be using are confirmed by the escrow company, by the lender, by everybody involved. And probably a good thing to keep in mind, if you receive an email midway through escrow that informs you that there's been a change of the wiring instructions, be very, very, very wary and talk to your agent, talk to your escrow company, and don't do anything until you confirm everything is kosher and everything is on the up and up. Thanks for watching Understanding the RPA Part 2. If you have any questions on what we've covered so far, please don't hesitate to let me know. You can leave a comment below or send me an email. And if you would like your own sample copy of the RPA, there's also a link for that below, and a link to the Guide to Agency Disclosure. In Part 3, we're going to get into the RPA itself. Now, the RPA is a pretty involved document, so I don't intend to cover it all in one video, but we will get started, and I look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, if you have any questions over what we've covered so far, or have any other real estate comments or questions you'd like to share with me, don't hesitate to reach out. As always, I'm here to help. Thanks.